Tell me when you want me to go. I've never moderated.
Also, ladies, can I just say every one of us is rocking a really fab lip for today?
And we were just talking about that.
And I feel like your hair is naturally curly and you straightened it.
Damn it.
Like,
the fact that you know that. Yes, my hair is very natural.
I'm naturally straight and I totally curled it.
Yeah, I was like frantically trying to make it on time and also get this to kind of try and do
very straight. Yeah.
Wow. That's why mine's up.
Oh, we're on. Okay.
Oh, we're
Hi, everybody. And welcome to Love is in the Air, sponsored by Love Sweet Arrow. I am Mona Shroff, and I have with me today 5 amazing South Asian authors who I am lucky enough to call my friends. And we're going to spend the next hour just getting to know each other. And I don't know, we'll see what kind of shenanigans ensue. And so I'm going to start off and I'll just introduce you real quick to everybody, and then we'll maybe talk about our books a little bit. Okay, so we'll start with Suleika. Suleika Snyder has Big Bad Wolf, just came out a couple weeks ago. She's an editor, writer, American Desi, and lifelong geek. She's an author of contemporary and erotic romance, a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusivity in publishing. Suleika is frequently ranting when she should really be adding to her body of work. Suleika lives in Chicago, finding inspiration in genre fiction, daytime and primetime soaps, and anything that involves chocolate or bacon. Visit her online at suleikasnyder.com and follow her on Twitter at Suleika Snyder. Next up, I have Nisha Sharma, who has behind her, I think, My So-Called Bollywood Life, but we're going to be talking maybe a little bit about Radha and Jay today. So Nisha is the author of the critically acclaimed YA novel, My So-Called Bollywood Life. She also writes contemporary romances, including the Singh Family Trilogy, and If Shakespeare Was an Auntie trilogy, launching in November 2021, which I think we are all really, really waiting for. Her writing has been praised by NPR, Cosmopolitan Magazine, Teen Vogue, BuzzFeed, Hypable, and more. Nisha credits her father for her multiple graduate degrees and her mother for her love of Shah Rukh Khan and Jane Austen. She lives in New Jersey with her Alaskan husband, her cat Lizzie Bennett, and her dog Nancy Drew. You can find her online at nisha-sharma.com or on Twitter and Instagram at Nisha Writes. Nisha. And next I have Farah. Bara Haron, after a childhood raised on Bollywood, Monty Python, and Jane Austen, Farah constantly wove uplifting happily ever afters in her daydreams. She now writes romantic comedies for adults and young adults full of South Asian families, delectable food, and most importantly, brown people falling stupidly in love. She lives in Toronto with her husband and 2 teens, plus a rabbit and 2 cats who rule the house. Farah's debut, The Chai Factor, was named one of the summer's best books. The Globe and Mail has been praised in Book Riot, Smart Pitches, Trashy Books, Bustle, and more. Her next release is Accidentally Engaged, out March 2nd, 2021, published by Forever Grand Central Books, and her YA debut, Tahira in Bloom, will be out in late 2021 by Skyscape. Alicia Rai. Hello, Alicia.
Hi.
Hi. Alicia pens award-winning contemporary romances. Her novels have been featured on the Indie Next and the Library Reads lists, and been named Best Books of the Year by the Washington Post, NPR. Oh my goodness, such a lovely list. NPR, New York Public Library, Amazon, Entertainment Weekly, Reader's Digest, Kirkus, the Oprah Magazine, and Cosmopolitan Magazine. That's so awesome. When she's not writing, Alicia is traveling or tweeting. To find out more about her books or to sign up for her newsletter, visit aliciawright.com. Last but certainly not least, we have Anika Sharma. Anika is a coffee-loving, work-addicted, laughter-obsessed, wanderlusting girl who often finds misadventures in New York City while on her dream-chasing quest. Words have been her passion for most of her life, and she loves the power you can wield, the change you can make, and lives that you can better by building stories that offer solidarity and breathing new life into worn souls. Armed with an MED from Penn State and an MPH from GWU, she spends her days as a health communications manager at an Ivy League med school, which combines her love for health and words. And by night, she's an author and podcast host, hopeful and determined to make the world a more positive and empowered place. She also freelance writes about health, particularly women's health, which is a field that she's been curious about since college. She has the podcast called The Woke Thisy, right? And she is currently her latest, I can't remember if this is your latest. I lost the rest of it. It's Love, Chai, and oh my God.
Yes, it's Love, Chai, and other four-letter words.
Four-letter words. Yes, that's coming out this year.
So like, I was like mouthing it while we're saying it. Like, listen, I know exactly what it is. Let me tell you.
Exactly what it is. That's right. So go ahead. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your next release?
About Love and Chai? Yeah, so it's coming out on October 5th and the pre-order links are out now. The cover is adorable, if I do say so myself. I think the company nailed it. The artist is actually Sun No Singh, which is pretty cool because she's actually also South Asian. And yeah, it kind of follows the story of a transplant from India. It's been about 10 years since she's come to the US. She's a really tight-knit group of friends, and each friend gets a love story in this series. And Garen, who is the heroine in this story, falls for a guy named Nash, who's got plenty of baggage of his own and has a very good reason to try and stay single and try not to meet people. She is trying not to fall in love as well, because she has a totally different set of expectations. So their story is like a sweet little love story, and it's kind of quiet, but those are sometimes my favorite stories. So yeah, it was one of my favorites. The friendships are some of the favorite scenes that I got to write, and I am very, very excited for this book to come out.
That sounds amazing. That sounds completely awesome. Do we all want to talk a little bit about our books to start off with, and then we can come back and discuss? Who wants to go next? I'll just call on you. How about you, Farah?
Yeah, I'll go next. Accidentally Engaged is out. There it is. I have just got the pretty finished copy, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's out March 2nd, and it is a story about a woman who she lives alone, and she's trying really, really hard to keep her parents out of her life. They're very dicey parents, inserting themselves in every part of her life. So she's trying really hard to be independent, but things aren't going well for her. She loses her job. She's unlucky in love. Her friend has moved away, but she's really, really trying. And her parents keep setting her up with eligible Muslim bachelors. So the newest one, they moved into the apartment across from her because they own the building, because she can't get away from them. So they moved the guy across the hall, and she's not interested in anyone her parents set her up with, even though he's really hot and he really loves her bread. And then they end up entering a cooking contest together, but they have to be engaged for the cooking contest. So it's an arranged marriage / fake engagement. She really doesn't want to have anything to do with anybody that has to do with her parents, but he really loves her cooking, and they come together through their relationship with food and their culture. I think I'm really excited. I feel like the story's been it's been through a lot, and I wrote it a couple years ago, and I feel like it's like I'm finally able to talk to it about people. So I'm really, really excited about it.
That sounds amazing. And I think that probably we'll have to eat bread like while we're
there's so much bread in this book. My goodness.
Right.
I don't see the problem. I'm waiting.
No, I don't see the problem. I like bread, right?
Absolutely. Alicia?
Sure. First Comes Like comes out on Tuesday. And it's a third book in my modern love series, so it finishes off the trilogy. And it's about this sort of a beauty influencer. She's been kind of making her way in the industry for a long time, and was getting a little bit discouraged and stuff, but is still chipping away at it. And she starts getting these DMs, like flirty DMs, from this very famous Bollywood star from a famous sort of Bollywood dynasty family, from his official account. She thinks it's legit. So he comes to America to start his sort of crossover Hollywood career, and he's a little cagey about meeting up. So she tracks him down at a party he's at, his cast party, and confronts him, and he has no idea who she is. So somebody's been using his account to catfish her. And then he's still sort of intrigued. His his smartwatch catches on her dress a little bit, and the little flirty moment, and it just sort of goes from there. So it's just two nice people kind of falling in love with the backdrop of Hollywood.
Kind of what we like to have right about now, right? Just kind of two people out there just gonna be happy together. So that's out on Tuesday.
It's out on Tuesday. Yep, February 16th.
That's awesome.
I've heard. I haven't listened to it because I can't listen to my own words. But the audiobook is narrated by two South Asians, and I've heard it's excellent. So audiobooks, you can also get it, on Google.fm. Part of their money goes to independent bookstores, so highly encourage that.
Awesome. So Laika, you want to tell us about Big Bad Wolf?
It does not have nice people in it. It's like the opposite of nice. Everyone's kind of a jerk. No, kidding. It's actually, I think the audiobook version of Big Bad Wolf is actually coming out this week, and the narrator is South Asian. I haven't heard it, and like Alicia, I probably won't hear it because I can't listen to my own words. So y'all will have to let me know how the audio is. Big Bad Wolf is like a post 2016 alternate universe I'm working out my anger book with werewolves and vampires and actually marginalized humans as well. And it's just sexy and bonkers. It's basically, someone who went vigilante and killed some Russian mobsters because they killed his foster brother. And he goes on a little rampage, as you do, and ends up in jail. And then he falls in lust immediately with someone on his legal team. Her name's Neha Alwalia. She's a good Punjabi American girl, who gets entangled with this dude, and they end up going on the run. It's bonkers and lots of fun and kind of political, high heat, and there are nice people in it. There's a few nice people.
Nice. Very nice. And that came out a couple of weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. I think we debuted on the same day, so yes. That's very exciting. Nisha.
So the next release that I have is actually my YA, which is very different from shape-shifting werewolves, but I absolutely love Big Bad Wolf, so you all should get it anyway. And Radha and Jay's Recipe for Romance, it's the companion novel to my so-called Bollywood life. So it is a YA, but it's not a rom-com. I always tell people that my so-called Bollywood life was the love letter to my younger self. It was about me expressing just joy and wanting to create a character that was confident and just embraced Bollywood and her love for Bollywood and her love for her identity. But Radha and Jay's Recipe for Romance is a little bit different. It was the actual life that I feel, the emotions that I actually experienced, I think, when I was growing up. And it's about a professional dancer who is betrayed by her dance mom. And she has to basically reset and start over. And she is trying to find out who she is, like, post dance career, if dance still has a place in her life, or if she has the ability to explore other interests and be someone else or enjoy other things. And part of those other things is cooking. So there's quite a bit of food recipes and experiences in the story as she discovers her food culture through her father's side. And also connecting with a Bollywood dance team person, and he's a hero who appeared in my so-called Bollywood life, and he's wrestling with his own demons. And so the story, the way that I pitch it is like two people fall in love, but they're basically grieving a future that they think they can never have. And they kind of connect on that front. So there's still my quirky humor in it, but it's not as funny as my so-called Bollywood life. So disclaimer right now. And it comes out in July, and pre-order links are also up on my website and everything like that.
So all of these are coming out this year, right? So we have, so like this is already out. Alicia's coming out on Tuesday. Nisha's coming out, you just said in
July.
Farah, is it March?
March 2nd, yeah.
And Anika was
October.
So we have something new like almost the whole entire year, which I think is fantastic. At least one from each person. So that all sounds really wonderful. So I'm just gonna address Valentine's Day right now, because it's Valentine's Day, and we're romance writers, and I just feel like we'll just get that part of the conversation out of the way. Valentine's Day, everyone's sort of been promoting like read romance and everything, and I think that that's fabulous. And I think we wouldn't be writing romance if there wasn't a little part of us that wasn't romantic. But I do want to just ask a question about Valentine's Day, but maybe not your typical, like, do you celebrate or not celebrate? But how about if you have a little story about, say, your best or maybe your worst sort of Valentine's Day that you've ever had? And you can go throughout your whole entire life. We can go back to elementary school where we had to like hand out Valentines to every person and you didn't get one. I don't know. I can't imagine anyone in this group not getting one, but so go ahead.
No, that was just me saying I didn't get a Valentine.
Oh, you're saying you didn't get one. So does I will let you guys start on your own. Like, if I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I would love to just share. I think we're romance writers, and it's kind of fun because I think sometimes, at least for me, a lot of some of the little things that happen in the books come from our own lives, and we might twist it a little bit, but it starts somewhere.
I have a story.
Yeah.
I have a story, and it's going to embarrass the hell out of my husband, so let's just hope he's not watching. We've been together a long time. We've been married for 20 years, and we've been together for 23 years. So in our first Valentine's Day together, we were in university, and I was living in a house with I think there were 5 other people in the house, and I had the entire attic. So I had this massive room. And then he was living in a teeny tiny little, also living with other people, but his room was really, really small in this house that was not far from our house. So it was our first Valentine's Day together. And I've never really, like, I was like, Suleika put her hand up, I put my hand up. I wasn't one that anybody was showering with attention for Valentine's Day. And he wasn't my first boyfriend, but this was my first serious relationship. But I'm always been I'm really cynical. It's really crazy that I'm actually writing romance now because I'm the eye rolling when anybody has these cheesy stories. And so I've never really cared that much about Valentine's Day, but he shows up at my house on our first Valentine's together with like a 6-foot devil that said Love Devil on it. And it was like this weird parachute fabric, and it was like this giant stuffed thing, and it had a hole in it. And so it was leaking like stuffing all over the place. And he's like, here, you have room for this. And that was his Valentine's Day gift for me. And then and I mean, and I had to sew it up myself so it wouldn't make a mess everywhere.
Why was there a hole in it?
I don't know.
I literally thought you were going to say that there was a hole in it because it was like his heart. There was like a hole in it.
Yeah, I had to. No, he like if you want to say that I'm not a romantic person, he is even less. Like, he cares about this stuff even less. So he's like, oh, I have a girlfriend for Valentine's Day. I can finally have a place to put this thing that I.
So my first Valentine's Day that I spent with a man was with my now husband, but like, it set the precedent for Valentine's Day. I'm hoping he's not listening. He's like, he should be right outside. But we had like what we call a semi-arranged marriage, right? Like, our parents both put us on like Indian matrimony websites. They matched our profiles. They kind of encouraged the match. Like, my parents met him within like 8 weeks of us starting to date. And his parents were in Kerala when we first started dating. So when they came back, it was the week before Valentine's Day. So he was living in DC at the time. I was in Pennsylvania. And I came down to see him, and I was like, oh, this is really exciting. This is my first Valentine's Day with the dude. Like, I don't have to buy myself flowers or make my own cake. Like, I can actually like get something and not have to pay for it, which was for some reason like the most exciting thing to me. So I get there, I'm like, so what are we doing for Valentine's Day? He's like, oh, well, my parents are back from Kerala and they want to meet you. I was like, wait a minute, I am meeting your parents for the first time on my first Valentine's Day. Are you serious? I I was not very happy. His parents are amazing. I love them. But like at the time I was very distraught, and I wrote a dissertation on my expectations for Valentine's Day in the future. And he now has that saved in his phone, and he refers to it every year. And there's like subheadings on like, these are my favorite shops. This is my favorite flavor of chocolate. These are the flowers that I like. So now there's no screw ups.
See, I should make my husband a list. I think my only requirement was no more 6 feet animals, no more 6 feet stuffed animals after that.
So dare we ask Nisha if he like hit your list this year?
No.
Oh yeah, the flowers came on time, the chocolate came on time. Like, it's been clockwork since that year.
If they don't get the memo, right? If they don't get the memo, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, I think last year was my worst Valentine's Day because the day before I went on a first date with a guy, and we went to a coffee shop, and it was a terrible date to begin with. It was really boring and awful. But he, and you know when something's like really boring and awful, so you fixate on like the most mundane thing as like a funny thing. And he bought 2 cake pops, and I was like, oh, that's sweet, that's nice. You know, at least he got me like a cake pop, and then he ate them both in front of me. So I got home, and I was like, that's kind of funny actually. So I talked about it, and it went a little mega viral. Which would have been fine if it had been for like my books or something, but it wasn't. So it was just me as a human woman on the internet. And it made men real mad, like real mad. And so I got like the most vicious, like I got a lot of people who were like, yeah, he's clearly a monster, which was kind of funny. But then I got an equal amount, maybe even more of like men made podcasts about me. Like they were like YouTube videos put up about it. Like Daily Mail did a section on me.
Oh
like,
my God.
Oh my God.
But I have to say, I will say this, that I was so like just tired and exhausted by all of that I'd been like, you know, in my messages on Bumble or wherever, which is where I met like the other guy or whatever. I'd been talking to another guy, and I was like, let's just meet up, like whatever, can't be any worse than this. And so I met him up 2 days later on February 16th, and we're still together, and we're having a lovely Valentine.
Oh, yay.
Does he give you cake pops?
He did. He did.
Did he share them?
The whole box.
Flowers, which I appreciate more.
Flowers were beautiful. I saw them right before we got on. They were gorgeous flowers. And I just, listen, 2 cake pops, there's every expectation that one of them is yours.
Exactly. No, it was very much, even with a girl, like anybody, like even if it was a platonic.
Anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're not sharing you have 2 sweets and you're eating both of them in front of the offer, even if you don't mean it. That's like common sense. So yeah, it was a bad Valentine's Day. It was a really, really rough one. But you know, that's the thing, right? You never know when something terrible will lead to something good, because I probably wouldn't have been on there if it hadn't been like, I really was just like, fine, whatever. Yeah, let's just meet up, whatever, you know? And it leads to something great. So you just never know sometimes.
Oh, now Anika and I are looking at each other like,
who wants to go first? No, I think last year's was actually pretty good. This year's was actually wonderful too, although I was working a lot. Like I was doing a bunch of events, including this one, and I just kind of overbooked myself. And I was like, this is my first married Valentine's Day, and I should probably be doing something with my husband. And he's like, I'll make dinner. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of that. He's been very sweet all day. But I think last year, it wasn't anything huge. He came over 3 dozen roses. And as they're sitting on the mantle, we ended up choosing our first dance song at our wedding, which we never actually ended up having because we had a COVID wedding and we didn't have a reception. But
what was the song?
have you guys ever seen Scrubs?
Yeah.
The final scene where JD is walking down the hall and then he sees the flash of his whole life post Sacred Heart Hospital, and it's a song called Book of Love by Peter Gabriel.
Oh, it's a beautiful song. Yeah.
So that's what we ended up deciding on. But we still haven't danced to it. Yeah.
You didn't dance to it even at your COVID wedding?
No, I was thinking about arranging it actually with the wedding planner. I had called her the night before. I'm like, listen, we might need to come up with some sort of surprise. But then she's like, okay, but then you need to move your cake, and then you're gonna have to do this, and then you're gonna have to do that. And I was like, all right, forget this. This is too much work. I don't know my love in some other way, but this doesn't need to happen today. It's fine.
Do this after the Zoom.
You should dance to it tonight.
Tonight,
I
after
know.
the Zoom.
I think
For
that's
your first Valentine's Day. Just surprise them when you get off.
that would
Yeah.
be cute. That's a good idea.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
But actually, when as I was thinking about this, I was listening to all of your stories. My very first Valentine's Day with a boyfriend was I was 18. We started dating the first day of summer after our senior year of high school, but we'd known each other since 4th grade, and we dated for 7 years. And at that time, I was like, I've never had a Valentine's Day with a boyfriend, and I want to go somewhere nice. And McDonald's had just started this thing where they were like setting out tables with candles just for Valentine's Day. And he's like, I'm just going to take you to McDonald's. And I was like, if you take me to McDonald's, I will kill you. And he was like, he's like, no. So he pulls into McDonald's and I actually cried. And he like behind the seat of the car, he like busts out like a stuffed animal, was like this white tiger. White tiger's my favorite. And it had tickets to a concert for Yellow Card, which is like now a defunct band, I guess. But to Yellow Card, and then ended up giving me roses, and then took me to the classiest of all classy places, Olive Garden. And went on a romantic Olive Garden date.
Yes.
After which, this boyfriend was white, by the way. After which, my dad texted me that night and said, "Happy Valentine's Day, baby. What did you do tonight?" And I said, "Oh, had dinner with my friends on campus." Like, he responded, "Are you sure about that? Because I got word that you were at Olive Garden."
Oh
no.
That has happened to me before too, where you lie to your South Asian parents about where you are and they call you out. It is awful.
Auntie network. It's the auntie network, the auntie uncle network. We always know.
They'll find you.
To this day, I have not figured out who saw me and who reported me. To this day, I did not spot any brown people in Olive Garden that day, so I have no idea who went and spilled the beans. But God bless my dad. He buys me flowers every year that I'm at home for Valentine's Day. He will buy my mom a big set, and he'll buy me an equally big set next to her, which makes her very happy. But he's just like, listen, you're my kid. I need you to like set a high standard. I'm buying you roses anytime I possibly can. So that's kind of nice. But that was probably, I was thinking about that today and I was like, I have to share this story because Olive Garden, I think, is the pinnacle of all classy Valentine's Day.
But I think the phone call after is even better.
Yeah. Sorry,
it makes the story, I guess. It makes the story.
Right. We all looking at me now because I have no Valentine's Day shenanigans to report because I with a boyfriend or anyone else. The closest thing I could think of is back when I lived in Ohio, my friends and I were out on Valentine's Day, which also happened to be one of my friends' birthdays. And my friends are all dudes. We're all dudes at the time. I mean, they're still dudes. So it was really, really cold. And we had to somehow decided it was bad Scottish accent night. And so we're all sitting there doing the most horrific Scottish accents, a bunch of Southwestern Ohio people. And people kept closing and opening the door. And I think I said something to the effect of, it's getting a little cold up in here, which, women understand perfectly. Men, it takes them a minute. And before you knew it, my friend whose birthday it was like, close the damn door, you daft cow. We've got women without brassieres here. And that has become I had a brassiere on, I can assure you. But that has become a saying on, for Valentine's Day now, 20 years later, that we still use. So that's as close to
that would be like my thing. I would not wear a bra on Valentine's Day to celebrate that moment. Like for the rest of the day.
You're right. You've got women without brassieres here. I should take you're right. Sorry, everyone. I do actually have a brassiere on. And it's, so that's as close as I get to funny Valentine's Day stories. Happy birthday, Mike.
I mean, those are great. And now we've addressed Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day. My husband is actually very romantic, and we've been together for a very long time, and I've been sitting here trying to think of like Valentine's Day stories, and I don't really have one because he always is right there with the flowers or the something, and he's just very, very sweet. And even today I had planned to spend the day with him and not work, and then I ended up being on a call for like 3 or 4 hours, and so he went and he picked up a very nice, a very lovely crab cake dinner. And there's a bottle of Prosecco I know in the fridge. So when I get done here, I have a very romantic dinner waiting for me, because he's just, I mean, we've been together since we were 19. So 33 years, like we've been together. We've had like at least 32 or 33 Valentine's days. I'm sure they weren't all together because we were long distance for a long time when we were younger. But he's I mean, as far as, it's funny that Farah said that she's so tongue in cheek with the romance and she, hates Valentine's Day. I'm not a huge fan of Valentine's Day, but I feel like it's a nice extra time to be romantic, and he's pretty good. He gets it without, and I do have to update a memo every once in a while, but he always gets it. So, and I made my traditional chocolate covered strawberries, and that's really it for Valentine's Day. As long as there's chocolate covered strawberries, like everybody's pretty much happy. So we're pretty good with that. So I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions out there in the chat, and you can go ahead and start sending those in whenever you want. We're going to chat a little bit longer. I'm going to ask everyone if they want to talk about, you guys have all kind of been around for a little while, and I know you have a good following, but is there something about you that most people might not realize, like something that's, that they might want to know, your fans or your readers, anything? It doesn't have to be Valentine's Day related. We don't have to keep going back there if you don't want to, but something like a little tidbit or a factoid. Who wants to go first?
I mean, the one fact that came to like my head really, like when you asked that question, was that I think it always like makes me laugh when I'll have readers come up to me and say, "Oh, have you read like this other author like Alicia Rai, or have you read this other author like Suleika Snyder, or there's this author I picked up like Farah Haron, she's so good." And I was like, I don't think our readers know that we know each other, and we've known each other for like years. Some of us have known each other for like decades. So like the South Asian writer community is tight, and we're all like each other's hype girls. So I think that's something that like whenever I explain that to readers, they really enjoy. So we do talk. We do talk.
I think you're totally right, Nisha, that people are often surprised when, I don't know if it's because, like in my reader group is with 2 other authors, and then I hang out with a lot of Toronto authors, but people don't realize that, and this is true for not just writers, but any Asians, South Asians, or any Asians, we always have our in culture group. We always have our brown friends, right?
We do, and I honestly say though, I did put this in my next book, because like, when you meet somebody and they're like, because you're brown, and they're like, they name like another brown person, they're like, do you know them? And I used to get irritated, because I was like, just because I'm brown doesn't mean I know that brown person. But then I do, And I'm just like, okay, I like whatever, like. We used to live in Germany, my husband and I. He was in the army, and so like 20 plus years ago we lived in Germany. My father-in-law has never set foot in Germany at this point. We were there for like a few months, and we went out to an Indian restaurant, Bevan and I, and he pays with his credit card, and I'm not kidding you, the guy comes back and he's like, "Shroff? I know a Shroff." And I'm like rolling my eyes in my head. I'm like, really? We're in Germany? And he goes, "Yeah, he lives in Philly." And I was like, stop it. And he named my father-in-law. And I'm like, how do you know him? He's never even been to Germany. And he's like, I know him. And my husband's like, that's my dad. I'm like, okay. So you would think by now I would stop, like, I would like embrace that a little bit, but I'm still like, no, all brown people don't know each other. But then we do. Sorry, that was my little thing.
We also get mistaken for each other, which I think is like, especially when conferences were still a thing. My goodness, we'd all get, someone mistook me for Nalini Singh once, and I was like, we're both a little petite, but that's about it.
Yeah, I've been mistaken for Suleika a number of times. And then, and the thing that I love is that they're very insistent when I say no. They're like, no, you're that. And I'm like, why would I lie to you? That doesn't make any sense. I get mistaken for Suleika. Who else? I think twice I've been mistaken for Nisha, definitely Sonali. I get
Yeah,
mistaken.
Sonali too. You should send me some of your cake pop people hate so I
Yeah,
can
I will
balance, you know.
definitely do that next time because
Right? I can handle some of it for you.
I was somewhere, I don't remember where, I think it was the Baltimore Book Festival, maybe. I think we were both at that, Salika.
Yeah.
And I was in the green room and this woman came up to me and she's like, "Oh, you're Salika Snyder." And I said, no, I'm not, but she is here. You can find her. I think she's downstairs. And she's like, "No, you're her." And I was like, do you think either of us is so famous that we're like pretending to be someone else to like keep the fans away? Like,
I remember like
Morgan Freeman or something. Like, no. Please.
When I won the Rita, like for Bollywood Life in 2019, I think like there was most of us were there at that Rita ceremony. I can't even tell you like how many texts I got like from you guys, from other like some of the other South Asian writers there who were like, someone sends their congratulations. They told me congratulations, and I'm just passing it on.
But when one of us shines, all of us shine.
Oh, does that mean I want to read it too?
Literally.
Woohoo!
We've all won Ritas at this point.
We've all won Ritas.
We have. Anybody else have a little tidbit they want to share?
I'm not really that interesting.
I beg to differ.
Well, I have a question. Then I have a question for you, Farah. Marcia has asked, Farah, are you a big baker or did you have to do a bunch of research?
No, I am a big baker. So in Accidentally Engaged, all the food that the character makes is stuff that I've made. I bake a lot of bread. I used to do a lot more than I do now, but I still do. Yesterday I made eclairs with my daughter, which was super fun. My daughter's 13 now, and she's at that age. We're quite close, but she's at that age where she's not really rebellious. Like she's not like talking back, but we bicker. So we're like a little small bickering back and forth, and we got through the end, and we had this tray of like 24 eclairs, and she's like, "We didn't kill each other," so that was a success.
That's always
good.
And Nikki also asked to know what lipstick Alicia and Farah are wearing.
Oh, mine's the Fenty Stunna. I really like it because it's pretty almost kiss-proof behind masks, so you can put a mask on and it's still kind of there afterwards.
And I've got the Maybelline, what is it called? The Super Stay ink.
Oh, the pen?
Yeah, the Super Stay something matte ink. I don't remember what color it is. Pioneer?
That's a good one, yeah.
And then Susan wanted to know if any of us include anything from real life in our books. And particularly for Alicia, is there a cake pop scene in a future book?
You should do that.
I think I'm too traumatized to do that. I mean, it was funny because like cake pops happened and then Girl Gone Viral came out like the next month during the pandemic. So, or in the first month of the pandemic. So it was a little bit of foresight because the heroine in Girl Gone Viral goes viral because she's in a coffee shop and but somebody's tweeting about her and this other guy. You know, it was kind of like a take on Airplane Bay or whatever that was. And she goes viral for that. So people were like, "Oh, were you psychic?" And I was like, "I wrote this a year ago. Like, no, I didn't know that all this was going to happen. This was not a publicity stunt. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Mm-hmm. It just happened." And my publicist at the time, like a few months later, she's like, "Can you just let me know in advance?" I was like, "I don't know this stuff. Like, if I could control it, I would. Like, if I'm going to go viral for something this ridiculous." So yeah, that's been in there, but inadvertently I put it in there. But yeah, I think I'm too traumatized to ever fully write it. It was just very scary. I did write an article about it for Huffington Post. So if you Google my name, Cake Pops is the second predictive thing that comes up, and you can go to the Huffington Post article and read all about it.
How about anybody else? You guys include real stuff in your books, things from real life?
Sometimes.
Yeah, there's one scene in Love Chat Other Four Letter Words. There's the characters go to Bryant Park and they play chocolate roulette. And that actually did happen on a date I went on.
What's chocolate roulette?
You like buy a box of chocolates. It's actually, I actually saw it also in some movie, Rachel McAdams, The Vow. I think they also did it in that movie. But you get like a box of chocolates and you don't know what flavors are inside or anything like that. And you just keep tasting like back and forth. And it's just sort of like,
that is cute.
And And like, I don't know. So the guy that I had gone on the date with, I'm still good friends with, but I may or may not have told him that our date actually made it into the book. I may have to warn him now. By the way, my character has kind of emulated us. Good luck. Hope your girlfriend doesn't mind. But yeah, no, it was actually a really good date and a really fun night, and it made for a good story. So it ended up making it into the book.
Fantastic.
That's cute.
Anybody else?
I put in a little bit in Big Bad Wolf. There's where my one of my secondary characters, Yulia, she's a bartender at a bar, a small bar in Brooklyn, in Kensington, the neighborhood of Brooklyn. And she talks about how a writer came into her bar, and Yulia's Russian, and a writer came into her bar, a romance writer, and asked her, told her that Russian billionaires and Russian hitmen are really popular in romance right now. Is that really a thing? Like, are they super hot in Russia? And Yulia busts her ass out laughing. That actually happened. It happened to me. I was the writer who was hanging out at my neighborhood bar with the Russian bartender. And I asked her if hot Russian guys was a thing. And she she fell out. So I had to put it in the book.
I mean, yeah. I have quite a few like locations like Suleika does in my story. Like my characters are always in central New Jersey, like from Edison to Princeton, like between that stretch. And so I often will like name actual restaurants, or I'll name street corners or whatever. So that always appears in my stories of like my favorite place to eat and my favorite place to like go to see a movie or Bollywood movie. In Radha and Jay's Recipe for Romance, the heroine is also she's a Kathak dancer, which is a classical dance form in North India. There's two types of Kathak, that like two houses of Kathak, and she's like Rajasthani Kathak. So that's what I learned for 11 years. And a lot of my, like the philosophy that I learned, a lot of the information about Kathak dance that I had like lived for so long made it into the book as well. So there's like a lot of me in the story, kind of very much like Bollywood life. And I think I don't know if I have anything else left to, every time I start a new book, I'm like, I don't know if I have anything else left to give, but this is a lot of me in it.
I think I do the same thing with location, because I tend to write in the area that I live in. So there's a lake here called Lake Kidamakundi, and I tend to make my couples go there for date. They end up there for some reason. In almost every book, they end up at that. It's a beautiful lake. It's dark at night, and it has like an amphitheater, and so they definitely do end up doing that. So I do use a lot of that. I do use some real life occurrences in my books as well. I think we all do to a certain degree. A few of the not happiest scenes in Then There Was You are from real things that happened to my daughter when she was at school, and so that's in there. But it happened, you start, I think we all agree that you kind of start there, and then you might embellish it a little bit, and it might change a little bit, and it might go like a different way. So, and then they asked someone else asked the reverse question. They're like, Nadia asked, sorry, have you ever written something in your book that has later ended up happening in your real life? And I kind of feel like Alicia went viral. Without really meaning to. So I don't know if anybody else had anything where you wrote something and then it ended up happening in your real life as well.
I did. In my first book, The Chai Factor, there was a plot point where, I mean, the book's a little bit old, so I'll give it away now, but there was a plot point where a little girl a little girl told another little girl some Islamophobic and racial slurs. And this was something that when I put it in the book, I was concerned, and I even had some feedback. People like, that wouldn't really happen with kids that young. And I actually based the child on my own daughter. I had a daughter that was around the same age at the time, and it almost the exact same thing happened to my daughter while I was in edits for the book. So then I used that as saying, no, this does happen to kids this young. And it does happen in Toronto where the book is set. So it's not a really fun story, but I think a lot of times we're writing stories, when we're writing stories from our own environment in our own communities, we know what's plausible and what's not. We're not pulling things out of our butt. Like, these are real things that happen. So maybe not the exact thing that would that maybe it's not exactly, but we are the kinds of stories we're telling are true to our stories. So it will happen, and these things do happen to us.
I agree. I think that's what ends up happening. And I think a lot of us write from things that maybe not necessarily that are things that happen, but like Nisha, right? Like all of your dancing. As you were saying that, I was thinking about the fact that, you know, we put, at least I put like Diwali in there, Indian weddings, and like my favorite Indian holiday is Raksha Bandhan. And so I have that being featured in the next thing, because that brother and sister bond is so tight. I'm so tight with my brother, and my kids are so tight with each other. And I just love like adding that layer in there, because it's part of our lives, right? And so you inform it because it comes right from your heart. Like it came from something in your life that you experienced. So
can you explain what Raksha Bandhan is for people who might not know?
Oh, that's a good idea. So Raksha Bandhan is it's a holiday that celebrates the bond between brother and sister. So just in a quick nutshell, a sister will tie it's a string, and you know, my daughter always makes it, but you can purchase it, and sometimes it's fancy, sometimes it's simple, whatever you want to do. And it's just a symbolic string that she ties on her brother's right hand, wishing him a long life and happiness. Sweets are exchanged always. And then in return, he gives her a gift. And we did a modern take of it when my children were little, when we started doing sort of that generational. So we've always done like generational, like our parents would tie each other, and then us, and then our kids. And then for our kids, we actually had the sisters also give gifts to their brothers too, because you know, the sisters were like, well, we want to give something to our brothers. And we were like, sure, why not? So gifts are exchanged, sweets are exchanged. And I think it's just basically it's like a 5-minute little ceremony. Our families have always made a huge deal out of it. We always make a ton of sweets. Everybody gets dressed up. There's always a big meal afterwards. And as I said, we do it like generationally. So sometimes we have 3 generations that are doing this, and it's always filled with just laughter. And we're like literally trying to shove like 3 or 4 sweets in each other's mouths. I mean, that whole thing comes to play. And I love it because I feel like it just celebrates that bond between siblings. It's just me and my brother, and I really love that sibling bond. And we've just always done that. And so that's what Raksha Bandhan is to me.
And it's like the original friend zone, because like back in India, what would happen was like if a dude liked this girl, she would be like, oh, I'm gonna tie a Rakhi on you, like that, I'm gonna do Raksha Bandhan on you, and he'd be like, he knew he was friend zoned.
Yes,
then.
that's very true.
I do remember before my husband and I started dating, when we were just friends, I was, you know, we were so close, we were like best friends, and I was like, oh, I should tie Rakhi on you, and he was like, yeah, no. I think he liked me first, and I didn't realize, like, it took me a while to catch on. I was a little slow of the falling in love business. And he was like, yeah, no, I have 2 sisters. He's like, that's fine. You have your own brother. Just tie it to him. You don't need to tie it to me.
That was a sign, Mona. That was a sign.
That was a sign. Let's see. Someone's asking, what are your favorite tropes to write or read? I think Tabitha asked that.
I really love, I think enemies to lovers is one of my favorites. It's, I think, the hardest thing to write because, you know, in contemporary books, at least, it's like really hard to keep, like the sort of fiction going that you hate each other so much that there's like a tension to not get together. But also it's not so bad that you can't, like, you know, hop into bed or fall in love. So it's a tough like tension to keep, I think, when you're writing it, but I love to read it when it's done properly. I love, like, in First Comes Like, you know, is sort of my homage to the fomance, as the characters call it, the fake romance, which I think is also like, oh, they're fake dating, you know, like surely they'll never fall in love, but then they do for real. So I love that one too.
I'm with you. I love that fake romance. I love that fake relationship. And I'm trying to write one right now, and it's harder to write than it is to just absorb out there, but I do love it. It's one of my favorites too.
I really like writing forced confinement, where they're the guys next door, or in my first book, he was in the basement. I mean, obviously it just makes it easier to get them together. One of the very first pieces of writing advice I got when I started writing romance is that the hero and the heroine, or your love interest, need to be on the page at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like internalize that, and now I always make it so that the guy is close enough so that he's always there. He's just always around.
How about Nisha or Anika, Suleika, Tropes?
I just love Friends to Lovers. I feel like that's just such a classic one, and it's like such a real one that I think it's kind of fun to see like how feelings turn. Sort of like Enemies to Lovers, except I don't know if I'm that talented to be able to pull that off. But I think, you know, Friends to Lovers is fun just because you can like start adding like tiny details and tiny romantic moments to things that like, normally, you know, we'd all kind of oversee and things like that. So probably that one. I'm kind of boring, so.
I'm just gonna say it. I like a secret baby, and I'm okay with that.
Nice. You just like threw a trope grenade into the.
I don't care. I like a secret baby.
I know it was a secret baby.
I know. I acknowledge the problems that exist.
Controversial, Nisha.
Oh man.
But I like a secret baby.
Okay.
Nisha woke up ready to fight today, apparently.
Right. I'm like, come on. No,
I live on the edge.
Wrote a secret baby book back in the day. It's my least popular.
I wrote my debut as a secret baby that she kept for 15 years.
Okay, mine was only for 5, and it wasn't really her fault.
Mm-hmm. It was conscious. Listen, I think I didn't know better. I was just like, it literally came from that fear, like when I was growing up, that my mom like had embedded into me that like getting pregnant without being married would be like the worst thing I could ever do. So I was like, what would happen? Let's write the book and let's see. And that was my debut. So
I feel like there's fantasy novels where it's like, oh, the heroine's life is at stake. She has to save the world, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's dangerous. But then the minute you get like a fetus involved, for me, I'm like, oh my God, stakes have changed. This is it. I am here for this book.
It's so funny, Mona, you were talking about how it was the worst thing possible. And I was actually just thinking the other day, you know, where those like Scared Straight programs that they used to like come to school and they'd do an assembly and you'd all have to go. And I was thinking about, we were talking about like our sex ed, like at our schools. And I remember when I was in 5th grade, and I traveled around a lot. I lived in like a lot of places, sort of big and small. And this was kind of a small town. And the woman came in and she was like, what do you think the worst thing that could happen from unprotected sex is? And we're all just sitting there like, I don't know. And someone was like, baby, pregnant, whatever. And she's like, yes, that's what I usually hear, pregnancy or a baby. But you know, a baby doesn't usually kill you, but AIDS will. And we're all like, what? And we were all like, it was like a universal traumatization. And I was talking to my like best friend, you know, we're friends on Facebook, and I just randomly messaged her. I was like, do you remember that Scared Straight? And she was like, the one who told us that the baby wouldn't kill us, but STDs would. And I was like, yes.
Like that's kind
I learned early that it wouldn't be the worst thing.
Well, I gotta tell you, like that the strict upbringing I had, because my parents came from India in like the late 60s, right? And so believe me, that was the worst thing that would happen.
See, mine didn't let me leave the house, so there was no question of me, like, unless I snuck someone into my bedroom.
I did, but I dated him, and I was up, you know, I snuck around, dated for a little while, but then when he and I started dating, my husband and I started dating, I did tell her, and she was afraid of the Auntie Network, so we would go out on dates, And then she would be like, I don't know about like you going out on dates because what if somebody sees you type of thing. And I was just like, well, I don't know what to say about that. Well, what if somebody sees you? The whole auntie. So I wouldn't have been busted by the auntie network, but then the auntie network was going to talk, right? And that would have been bad. So yeah, that was it. And that was only for me. I think as time went on, like my parents are two completely different people now that I have two grown children. Of
course.
It's a whole other world. But yeah, at that time that was that. So that's where my
I
secret baby came from. Because I was like,
my mom just didn't talk about it with us.
My mom had
learned from the scared straight lady all about.
Yeah, I got the talk from like the school sex ed. My parents were just like.
But I was also like, I just read a lot and I was really quiet, so I think they were like, she's fine.
Were you the oldest though?
No, I was the second, and so my sister probably did have it, but she was also like way more popular than I was, so she would like actually have boyfriends and stuff. And like I said, we moved around a lot, so there was no real auntie network because they weren't like we weren't enmeshed enough in any South Asian community for a longer period of time for us to have that. But at the same time, like my mom, like they were usually small towns, so like there'd be gossip and stuff. But it was never to the point where, they brought the hammer down on my sister at all or anything like that. And she was smart. She'd like sneak out very well and sneakily, nobody would be the wiser. So, so they were pretty chill about most of that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's honestly, if they can sneak out and not get caught.
Oh yeah, she was like a pro at it. And
well, I feel like that's the best, even for my own children. I'm like, just don't let me catch you. Because if I catch you doing something, then I have to deal with it. So
I was just too good and too scared. Like I remember when I was in college, I was like very young for my age in college, and my older sister was like, "Hey, do you want my ID? Like to go out?" And I was like, "Oh no, why? I'll just stay home. Like that's too much to risk." And she's like, "They're just gonna confiscate it if they realize it's not you." And I was like, "No,
I'll end up in. I would, yeah."
Yeah. When did that change for you guys? Because when I was a kid, I was like terrified. I was like all about, following the rules. But then at some point, my parents, like their tune completely changed, or I became aware of it. Like at 17, for example, I'd be like, I'm leaving Barnes & Noble. I'm coming home. I'm going to be like home at 9:30. And they'd be like, so soon? What do you mean so soon? It's 9:30. It's late.
I'll let you know.
I feel like my parents left the country when I was 19, so they moved back to Africa. So I didn't have that period where they got lax with me. I was a kid, and then they were gone. So I sometimes feel like that they still don't really. Like I know when they're reading my books, I mean, I don't have a lot of, my books are pretty low heat, but it's still more than they expect. And they're like, oh, it's like, you realize I have 2 kids, don't you? Like, or swearing or drugs, which is hilarious because I was a bad kid. I snuck out all the time. I had a fake ID. I was meeting men in bars when I was 17, but they didn't know. And then all of a sudden they were gone. So I never had that where now they let me be an adult.
I think when I had children, it definitely wasn't when I was 17.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember being like 19 or 20 years old and on a date with my husband, and I took their new car, like not like I crossed the city limit into Philly, but it's still like the suburbs. I grew up in Bucks County, so it's still the suburbs of Pennsylvania, but it was considered Philadelphia. And I called them to tell them that we changed the movie and I was going to be like a half an hour late. This is on a payphone that I'm calling them, and they're like, "Yeah, no, come home." And I was like, "Why?" They're like, "Because you can't have the brand new car in the city like past like 10 o'clock. And I literally, my husband and we literally had to like get our money back for our tickets and come home because God forbid that the car and me was in the city after 10 o'clock at night. It's crazy. So yeah, when I had children, I think they were like, okay, all right.
Now she's an adult.
Yeah. Oh, we're almost at time. I do have a couple more questions. Let me just see here. Here's one for Alicia. Mixer asks, can you talk about how you get your TikTok ideas because they're hysterical, which I agree.
Oh, I don't really know. I think I've always been kind of a ham. I was like a drama kid, and I think most people on TikTok are like frustrated drama kids in one way or another. And so yeah, I mean, sometimes I just like sketch it out or whatever. Usually those like the ones like the skits and stuff, like the devil one, like that takes me actually quite a bit of time to do because it's just me with a phone and a tripod. So I have to like do a couple takes because I don't know what's going to be funny, once I play it off of each other. So that's a bit more work than people realize. But yeah, I don't know. I just think like, oh, this would be funny. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just like stand up, I guess,
Yeah.
We have time for one more quick question. I think it's a good one to end on today. Tracy asks, what's the one romantic movie you love to watch over and over again?
Oh, for me, it's so I have two of them. The first one is While You Were Sleeping. I love that movie so much. I make everybody watch it with me every Christmas. And also Pacific Rim, which doesn't seem like a romance movie, but when you watch it and you see the way he's like looking at her, I mean, if you like put the robots aside, like it's very romantic.
Okay. Anyone else?
I like
I'll just go while you're thinking. My favorites are actually The Proposal and To All the Boys I've Loved Before. And I just watched the third one last night. And can I tell you, Laura Jean and Peter Kavinsky, I'm definitely not that YA, like I'm out of that age zone, but they're just so cute.
I have to watch it tonight. That's on my TV. That's what I'm doing after this.
Yeah, I saw it today.
Yeah, I could watch The Proposal and those movies over and over again.
I have a movie that I've been watching more lately. It's Austin Land. It's cracking me up more than when it first came out lately. I don't know why.
But that end scene, Farah, in Austin Land,
good.
End scene I've watched so many freaking times. Just like that side step into the room, I like lose my mind. And
just the fact that she's just making tea when the great big romantic end happens. I don't know why. It's just it's hitting me right where in the pandemic feels right now is Austin Land.
I love Austin Land, but like I'm a fan of Pride and Prejudice, of course. Like I'm going to do the throwback Colin Firth version just because. Like I also am a huge fan. I was talking with a couple of my friends the other day about it, of the Kenneth Branagh version of Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh yeah.
Which is also a classic. And to round off my top 3 English-speaking movies, romances, is 10 Things I Hate About You. Because, I mean, R.I.P. Heath Ledger, but that movie was amazing. And plugging another Netflix film, Namaste Walia, came out today. So if you guys are looking for like an awesome movie that's to watch tonight, Namaste Walia comes out, so go check it out.
I'd say probably The Wedding Planner.
Oh, yeah.
And also Me Before You, Emilia Clarke and Sam Claflin. Jojo Moyes. I'd probably say that movie as well.
I gotta go with Chasing Liberty with Matthew Good and Mandy Moore.
Oh my gosh, I was just telling my husband about that movie yesterday. Yeah, that's high on the list.
I love it so much.
Yeah,
it's delightful. It's Mandy Moore's hilarious. She's like a manic pixie dream girl, but it's just perfect. She works, and Matthew Good is like this beleaguered young, secret agent, and you just see him get frustratedly in love with her, and it's adorable. And I have to plug a non-English film, which is a controversial choice. It's Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. I know he falls in love with her when she gets pretty. I know, but it's
amazing.
It's a friends to lovers movie where after his college girlfriend dies in childbirth, she magically manages to write like 8 long letters to her future daughter while she's dying of blood loss in the hospital. And the daughter opens the letters, and eventually she gets old enough to hook up her father and his college best friend. And it's just sweeping and weepy and adorable. And yes, the college best friend goes from being a tomboy to being gorgeous with long hair. But I don't care if it's reductive, it's adorable.
Alicia's dying.
I think that is like a oddly formative movie for millennials and like Gen Xers, and I'm not really sure why. But I understand that it is. I think it is like, and I do think there is something magical just about Shahrukh and Kajol like together.
Yes, they are a great
There's
pair.
the look. It's the look.
Look, the way they look at each other.
I think with any other actors, everybody would be like, what is this? But I think with them together, I absolutely understand it.
There's a scene at a gazebo that I've used, I think when we teach Bollywood romance classes, when we used to do that, and I talk about the gazebo scene, there's no dialogue, not even really any music, and they're just dancing in the rain in a gazebo. And it is one of the most beautifully romantic scenes ever. Like, I'll give, you can have your hand flex over Jane Austen hand flex. That gazebo dance is amazing. And I highly recommend it if you want to look up how Bollywood does romance without, overt sexual stuff.
I think like and it's so silly, but I think Aja Nachle is like my favorite, most romantic movie. And I don't know why, because the romance is so secondary to the rest of the movie. But that hero is just like the nicest villain that you will ever come across.
No, but he plays a villain in Thal too. Like he just like Akshay Khanna knows how to play a villain that's like
he's like, here's some pizza. Like, I'm gonna tear down your dance studio. I made this pizza for you. It's like
you can tear down my pants. Oh. Sorry, did I say that?
Wait, we made it to 7:04, so like, we're good.
Good.
We're now in prime time. It's fine.
It's fine. Kids are not watching anymore.
Yeah.
Or the parents. So, all right. Well, I think as Nisha said, we are at 7:05 now, and I think we could probably continue on because now we're like just almost, it like takes us a little time to get warmed up. I feel like we could just keep going, but Love Sweet Arrow was kind enough to host us tonight, and I just want to thank Marissa and Roseanne at Love Sweet Arrow for having us on today, and I want to thank Suleika and Farah, Nisha and Alicia and Anika for joining me today while we celebrate all of our releases and Valentine's Day at the same time. And there has been a request one more time, I got to tell you, Alicia and Farah, to put the names of your lipsticks in the chat before we leave. Because they really want to know.
We were talking about it right before the video, so like,
I'll tweet the lipstick. I'll take a picture of the lipstick and tweet it.
Perfect.
I just put it in the chat. So.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you. So thank you, ladies, for joining me tonight. It's been super fun with you, as it always is. And thank you to Love Sweet Arrow for hosting us. And thank you to everybody who watched and chimed in and chatted and asked questions. And you can follow us all on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Now we're all on TikTok too, because Alicia taught us last time. And that's a whole other story. So thank you very much. And I think we're still live. We're going out now. So bye, everybody.